Over the past few years, high inflation has stretched the budgets of many households around the world. With food and other necessities taking up a larger percentage of people's paychecks, they have less money for discretionary items like vacations or new furniture. The cost of living situation has gotten so bad that many things we used to take for granted are now considered luxuries. When you think of luxury goods, you probably think of designer clothes and jewelry, or maybe a Michelin star restaurant. You probably wouldn't think of McDonald's. But by some definitions, the world's largest fast food chain can now be considered a luxury retailer. McDonald's recently disclosed that low-income consumers are eating less at their restaurants, while middle and high-income consumers are eating more. Households that make less than $45,000 per year are considered low income. The reason for this is price inflation. If you go on TikTok, you can find hundreds of videos of people complaining about how their McDonald's bill is much larger than expected. McDonald's used to be viewed as an affordable option for budget-conscious families. Now it seems more like a luxury, attainable only to the upper classes. For a time, McDonald's strategy of raising prices seemed to be working well. The company reported record revenues and profits in 2023. But with so many low-end consumers now priced out, it looks like the price increases have finally reached a breaking point. In the second quarter of 2024, the fast food giant disclosed that its comparable stores sales had fallen by 1% compared to the prior year. This is the first revenue decline the company has reported since 2020. In this video, we'll explore how McDonald's got so expensive, and what this means for the company going forward. With inflation already stretching people's budgets, the last thing anyone can afford is to become the victim of cybercrime, which can be financially catastrophic. One of the biggest risk factors for hacking is poor password management. The average person has 168 personal and 87 work-related passwords. It's impossible to remember them all, so you likely reuse passwords across accounts. If one account is compromised, a hacker can access many others, leading to financial and reputational damage. That's where today's sponsor NordPass comes in. NordPass, created by the makers of NordVPN, is an easy-to-use password manager for businesses and individuals. It securely stores all of your passwords and autofills them more securely than browsers. Passwords stored in browsers can be easily seen by hackers if your device gets compromised, and NordPass protects you from this. NordPass can also generate strong, unique passwords for new accounts. You can share credentials securely through NordPass, keeping them hidden when autofilling. This is far more secure than email or text messages. The best part is its ease of use, with the browser extension, desktop app, and mobile app accessible across all devices. Try securing your passwords at work. Use the coupon code WALLSTREET at nordpass.com/wallstreet for a free 3-month trial of NordPass Business with no credit card required. You can also get 20% off on 1-year and 2-year plans. The coupon applies to all new business plans. Go to nordpass.com/wallstreet. And now back to the video. Late last year, a post showing an $18 Big Mac meal went viral on Reddit. The internet was shocked to see such a high price. The McDonald's in question was located in Darien, Connecticut, a small suburb of Stamford. Darien is an extremely wealthy community with a median household income of $250,000. The restaurant was located at a gas station rest stop on a busy highway. The prime location, combined with the wealthy local customer base, allowed this particular McDonald's to charge prices far higher than the national average. Nonetheless, the shocking $18 price was widely talked about and criticized across both social and traditional media. This became such a PR disaster for the company that the president of McDonald's US had to come out with a blog post debunking some of the discourse around their pricing. He explained that the average price of the McDonald's menu has increased by 40% over the past 5 years, which is roughly in line with the increase in wages and raw material costs in the same period. As of 2024, the average price of a Big Mac is $5.29 in the US. The $18 Big Mac meal in Connecticut is an extreme outlier. The reason prices vary so widely across different locations is because the vast majority of McDonald's are operated by independent franchisees. There are about 42,000 McDonald's restaurants around the world, but only 5% are operated by the company directly. 95% are operated by independent franchisees. While most large fast food chains use a franchise model, there are a few unique aspects of the McDonald's franchise system. McDonald's is very selective about who they allow to become franchisees. If you want to open a new franchise location, you must prove that you have at least $500,000 of liquid assets to fund the startup costs. Franchisees never own the real estate that the restaurant is located on. About half of the franchise locations are owned by the McDonald's Corporation. The remainder are leased by the McDonald's Corporation and subleased to the franchisees. By controlling the real estate, McDonald's controls how many restaurants they have in any given area. They choose new locations strategically to avoid cannibalizing sales of existing locations nearby. If you want to become a McDonald's franchisee, just having money isn't enough. You also need to successfully complete a 6 to 12 month training program teaching you the in and outs of how a McDonald's restaurant works. This standardized training is vital to maintaining the company's quality and service standards. Once you complete the training, McDonald's will give you a franchise contract for either a new location they just built or an existing location. Either way, you'll need to pay a $45,000 upfront franchise fee. While you don't need to pay for the real estate, you do need to pay for the signage, furniture, self-checkout kiosks, etc. This can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you want to take over an existing location, you'll need to pay a variable fee based on the historical revenue and profitability of that location. Desirable franchises can cost upwards of $1 million to take over. Franchisees sign a 20-year contract with McDonald's. If the location performs well, McDonald's will typically renew the contract with the existing franchisee. If sales underperform expectations, McDonald's will often give the location to a new franchisee at the end of the contract term. The McDonald's Corporation sets the menu at all locations. Franchisees are required to purchase all their raw materials and equipment from approved suppliers. They have a unique menu in each of the 118 countries they operate in. For example, in Saudi Arabia you can buy the Chicken McArabia. In South Korea, you can get a burger drenched in bulgogi sauce. But within any given region, the experience is very standardized. No matter which location you go to, you can be confident that you'll get the quality of food and service that you expect. While the menu is set by McDonald's corporate, each individual franchisee sets their own prices. Areas with higher rent and labor costs tend to charge higher prices. For example, a Big Mac in downtown LA will probably cost you more than it would in rural Arkansas. But due to the standardization, the two Big Macs would be indistinguishable. Once a franchise location is set up, the franchisee bears substantially all of the costs of operations. They hire the employees, buy the raw materials, etc. They pay 5% of their revenue to the McDonald's Corporation as a royalty. They also pay monthly rent, which typically equates to around 8% of sales. The franchise business model is extremely lucrative for the McDonald's Corporation. They receive billions of dollars of franchise royalties every year with almost zero variable costs. In exchange for the franchise royalties, the McDonald's Corporation is responsible for national advertising, managing supply chains, and innovating the menu. Even still, the franchise business model has been extremely profitable. In 2023, their operating profit margin was 46% of revenue. This is very high for the food service industry. This number is dragged down by the 5% of McDonald's locations that the company operates itself. For the franchise part of the business, profit margins are even higher. Despite the high costs, in most cases becoming a franchisee is a good investment. In 2023, the average franchise location generated $3 million of gross sales. Operating margins for franchisees are believed to be around 10% on average. Even if it costs you $1 million to start a franchise, you'll probably make back your investment in a little over 3 years. Despite being a mature brand, McDonald's continues to open up hundreds of new locations every year. Over the past 5 years, the number of worldwide locations has increased 10% to almost 42,000. Now that we understand how McDonald's works, it's time to figure out why they raised their menu prices so much over the past couple years. Between 2019 and 2024, the average menu price at McDonald's has increased by 40%. Other large fast food chains have raised prices by similar amounts. Some critics have blamed this on corporate greed. Fast food restaurants are increasing prices to increase their profits at the expense of consumers. McDonald's pushes back against this argument. They say their franchisees have no choice but to raise prices to keep up with inflation. They're not making extraordinary profits. So which explanation is correct? According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the General Consumer Price Index has increased 21% between 2019 and 2024. The price of groceries has increased slightly more at 25% during the same period. The price of McDonald's has increased by 40%, almost double the rate of inflation. What can explain such a massive increase? While we don't have access to the financial data of individual franchisees, we can look at the 5% of restaurants that McDonald's operates itself. McDonald's operated restaurants tend to be larger than franchised restaurants, and the company keeps some of the best locations for itself. Thus, the economics of company-operated locations is not perfectly comparable to franchise locations, but it should be at least somewhat representative. The average company-operated McDonald's generated $4.7 million of revenue in 2023. About 1/3 of that went to the cost of raw ingredients and packaging. Roughly the same amount went to wages and benefits for employees. This only includes frontline employees and store managers. McDonald's corporate staff are not included in this number. Finally, $1.1 million went to occupancy costs. This includes rent, property taxes, utilities, and some other miscellaneous expenses. Each company-owned McDonald's generated about $700,000 of profit in 2023. We can see that the cost of labor is almost as much as the cost of raw materials. As it turns out, wage inflation has been the main driver of price rises in the fast food industry. To understand fast food wage inflation, we need to look back at the pandemic and the lasting effect it had on the labor market. In the early stages of the pandemic, many workers in the food service and hospitality industries were laid off, as restaurants and hotels were forced to shut down. Many of these laid-off workers used their newfound free time to learn some new skills. They started applying for white-collar jobs so they could work from home. When the lockdown restrictions were lifted, consumers returned to restaurants in force, and demand quickly surpassed pre-COVID levels. By this point, many people who used to work in the food service industry had already transitioned to white-collar jobs and didn't want to come back. Also, many people were unwilling to take low-paying jobs in 2021, as this would cause them to lose their enhanced unemployment benefits. Both of these factors caused a decrease in the pool of workers willing to accept food service jobs. Fast food restaurants had no choice but to increase wages to entice workers. According to data from the U.S. Labor Department, low-wage workers saw the biggest wage gains in the post-pandemic recovery. Between 2020 and 2022, the bottom 10% of workers saw their real wages increase by 5.7%. The top 10% of workers saw their real wages decrease by 5%. Both numbers are adjusted for inflation. We can see this in McDonald's numbers. In 2019, each company-operated store incurred a little over $1 million of labor costs. By 2023, this had increased 35% to almost $1.4 million. This increase in labor costs is roughly in line with how much they raised prices. We can also look at the restaurant-level profit margins for company-operated stores. This metric excludes advertising and corporate overhead costs. Despite the substantial increase in menu prices, restaurant-level margins have declined slightly since 2019. All things considered, it does not appear that McDonald's is price gouging consumers. The realities of the labor market left them with no choice but to raise prices. From 2021 through 2023, consumers were largely willing to accept the price hikes. In 2021, comparable sales increased by 17%, easily surpassing pre-COVID levels. In 2022, sales grew by 11%, which is still very impressive. In 2023, sales grew by 9%, but in 2024, menu prices finally hit a breaking point. In the second quarter, comparable sales declined by 1%. Cooking at home is almost always cheaper than eating fast food. The difference has become even greater, as fast food prices have increased faster than groceries. Households with incomes below $45,000 have been hit the hardest by inflation. To balance their budgets, they have no choice but to cut back on McDonald's. Interestingly, middle and upper income households have actually been increasing their consumption of McDonald's as they trade down from more expensive restaurants. But this has not been enough to offset the decline from low-income consumers, and overall sales volume has declined. In an attempt to bring back low-income consumers, McDonald's announced a new limited-time promotion called the $5 Meal Deal. You can get a McDouble or a McChicken, a small fries, 4 chicken nuggets, and a small soft drink for $5. This is about 30% cheaper than if you were to buy each of these components individually. It was initially only supposed to last for the month of July, but they extended it through August. Remember that franchisees are free to choose their own prices. Technically, they weren't required to participate in the $5 meal deal, but more than 90% of locations did. The McDonald's Corporation spent heavily on national advertising to promote the meal deal. This helped to bring more customers in the door, many of whom would not have gone to McDonald's otherwise. If you were to buy the components of the meal deal individually, it would cost you about $7. The normal price is about 3 times the cost of raw materials, so the raw materials of the meal deal is likely around $2.40. At the $5 price point, the restaurant still makes a profit, just a smaller profit than they would make at the full price. The downside is that some customers who would otherwise have bought more expensive meals may now buy the meal deal instead. McDonald's is making a gamble that the increased traffic from new customers will offset the decline in revenue from existing customers. It's too early to say if this will pay off. If you're waiting for McDonald's prices to go back down to pre-COVID levels, you shouldn't hold your breath. Most franchisees do not make excessive profits. The realities of the labor market gave them no choice but to raise prices, and this is unlikely to change anytime soon. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video. What do you think about McDonald's? Have they raised their prices too high? Let us know in the comments section below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Wall Street Millennial, signing out.